My name is Rachel, and I love masks. I think just because we're having a pandemic doesn't mean we still can't be fashionable. So I thought I would bring to you a little tutorial on how I make my lace fashion masks. And you can do this with any type of lace. I have these 3 examples here, which are all very pretty. And I learned to make these masks from a tutorial by Dyllas, and I'm going to link her video down below. Her video will also show you how to do one with a filter pocket. My fashion masks I'm only making with 2 layers of cotton, so I'm not doing the filter pocket. But I also made a video of me following her tutorial when I first learned to make these several months back, and I'll link my first video below as well. But the reason why you really want to go check out her video is in the description box of her video. She has links to the patterns for the masks in different sizes. And initially I was making them all in size medium. All these that I just showed you are in size medium, but I discovered that the size small actually fits me better. So I actually now have a small pattern which I've cut out, and I've been making all my masks in small now. So we're going to just get down on the floor, and I will show you first cutting out the parts, and then we'll hit up the sewing machine. So let's get started. Okay, so here I am with all the supplies that we're going to need. We of course are going to need some elastic for the straps. Here is the pattern that I cut out in the size small. I have this little scrap of lace. This little piece of blue cotton. This is a cotton quilting fabric. And then this is a sleeve from a t-shirt because I like to make my inside layer out of t-shirt material. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut out 2 of each of these, and of course just cut it out once, just have your fabric folded over. So let me start with the t-shirt fabric. And you don't use pins. In the original Kim's tutorial, the reason you don't use pins is you want to put as few holes into the fabric as possible for the masks for safety reasons. But I don't use pins because I'm lazy. So I was glad to find a tutorial that gave me a reason not to use pins. But let me start by taking my fabric scissors and cutting out my t-shirt layer. Okay, so I've cut out my t-shirt layer, and I'm going to sit that to the side. And just a little tip, if you don't have elastic, these arm seams as well as the bottom band of a t-shirt, if you cut it off right along the seam, they make great straps for these masks. I've done that before when I've run out of elastic. So next I'm going to cut out my lace layer. And this scrap, it's hard for me to see where it's been cut off, so I'm going to put this blue in here so I can see how much room I have to work with. So I know where to put this. Okay, now I've got that placed, I can take the blue back out, and I'm just going to cut my lace layer. Okay, so I have my 2 layers of lace, and it's important to remember if your lace has a front side, you want the 2 front sides to be together. This lace works either way, so it doesn't really matter, but like some of my sequin laces, I have to make sure that the sequins are on the inside so that when I sew my seam, they become the outside. And now I'm just going to cut my final piece out of my cotton fabric. Now I cut this one along where the folded seam is right there, so I have to cut that part open as well. And then you want to take your lace, and again, if your cotton fabric had a front, again, the fronts need to be facing inward. But I'm just going to place my lace sandwiched between my cotton. Again, if there were fronts, all fronts would be pointed inside to the inside. And I'm going to put those 2 pieces aside for now, or 3 pieces. And then I'm going to cut pieces of elastic. Initially I was doing these 10 inches, but I did have some people say that those weren't long enough, so now I cut them 13 inches, and if they're too long, people can just cut them shorter. And I actually use my little like tooth-edged shears for that, just so that the elastic doesn't fray at the edges. Okay, and then the last piece of my supplies is, this is a pipe cleaner. Now my initial pipe cleaners were a lot nicer and thicker than this, so I could actually cut them in half and get 2 from each pipe cleaner, but these are super thin pipe cleaners that I found on Amazon. I bought a huge box of them, but now I use the entire pipe cleaner. And what I do is first I bend it in half, and I twist those 2 halves together. Then I bend it in half a second time. And twist those 2 halves together. And then that will be the little metal piece that will go up in the nose to help it form better across the nose. So I have all of my supplies now, and I'm going to meet you at the sewing machine. So here we are at the sewing machine, and I have my 4 black straps, my little piece of pipe cleaner for the nose, and our t-shirt layer, as well as our cotton with lace layer. And I'm going to start with this cotton with lace layer, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew all 4 of these pieces of fabric together right down the curve, and I'm just going to do that with a simple straight stitch. And this pattern does have a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then just take my little scissors here and just cut off that thread, cut off my loose threads. And you can see I just have a simple stitch right down there connecting my lace, so when you open it up, that all is now sort of like one piece of fabric. And then I'm doing the same thing with my t-shirt layer, where I'm just doing a seam right down that curved edge. And then you can see again, I just have the little seam right down here on the curved edge and a ton of cat hair. There's no escaping cat hair in this house. And I just trimmed off the extra thread there at the top. So next what we're going to do is we're going to put these 2 pieces together. And you're going to want the front sides to be facing each other, so that your seams go on the back. So just open them both up. Make sure they're both go the same direction. And then just and then what you're going to do with these seams is you just fold them back, so that when you sew them flat like that. And if it does get folded over, it doesn't really, it's not a big deal. It doesn't really make much of a difference, but it just makes for a slightly smoother finish if you can get them both flat like that. And then starting at the center, I'm going to sew down to this end over here. And I am doing all this with that 1/2 inch seam allowance, and also always remember to backstitch at the very beginning and end of your seam. And then we're going to go to the back side and do the same thing for this side, starting at the middle. Just lining up those stitches. And making sure that that extra lace bit in the center doesn't get folded back or something like that, because I've done that before and then had to rip out seams. So make sure that's also nice and flat. Everything's nice and flat and is going to get caught in the seam. And I'm just going to trim off the extra threads. And now we're doing the exact same thing, but along the bottom. And just starting in the center. And the other side. And again, just cutting off those extra threads. Okay, and now for what I think is the most difficult part of this. And that's sewing this on. And I bend mine in half and then straighten them back out, but that little bent part I put on that center seam. And I still don't get them even most of the time. This is also where I break the most needles. Because if it hits that metal wrong, it'll break. But you want to change it to a zigzag pattern, and my machine allows me to change the width of my zigzag, so I go to a pretty wide zigzag because you want to be able to sew back and forth over your wire there without your needle hitting the wire. Like I said, this is the part where I do tend to break needles, but hopefully we'll get through this one. So I'll go forward a little bit and then I'll go backward a little bit to get this thing nice and secure on the inside. And I do sew these on what'll be the front side, not the t-shirt side. As you can see, I go forward and back, forward and back. And then when I'm getting up towards where it's bent, I have to be real careful because the distance changes. When I get right to the top, then I'm going to turn it a little bit to make it straight again. You can see I'm down on the wire, so that's why I do it slowly and check there. So I move it over and I'm back to being able to get side to side. Woohoo! Success without breaking the needle! And again, just trim off excess strings. And as you can see, it looks a little bit sloppy, but it's on the inside, so no one's ever going to see it. But you want to go back and forth to make it nice and secure so it'll last through several washings so that people can just throw these in the washing machine. And our next step is straps. Now if your strap has a front, which mine does because it's shinier, you want to make sure your front, you open up these pieces, you want to make sure the lace and the colored fabric are on one side and just the t-shirt is on the other side. And you want to make sure the shiny or the front part of your elastic faces the lace. Don't accidentally sew this between the lace and your colored fabric. I've done that before. It's terrible. So I've shoved all the lengths of my lace down into it. Again, making sure I'm between the lace and the t-shirt fabric, and that the shiny part is facing the lace. And then I'm just going to sew right across here. And I actually do this, I do that same zigzag that I was just doing, although I change it back to just a normal width. And I do just the zigzag part over the elastic. And then I change it back to a straight stitch and go backwards over the elastic. And then I sew all the way across to the other end. And when I reach the other end past the seam, I go back to the crisscross stitch and go backwards with the crisscross stitch over the elastic. And once I've gotten past the elastic, I just go back to my straight stitch again and just finish it off. And the reason why I do that, of course, is just to make sure the elastic is firmly sewn in, so you can't just easily pull the elastic out once it's completed. So now we're going to turn it inside out, right side in. And this is where you know you have your elastic in the right place, if it's actually sticking out the ends here. Because if you put it between the colored fabric and the lace, it would only make it halfway through because of where your middle seam is connecting your colored fabric and lace. But just flip it right side out here. Just pull the elastic. And you'll feel the nose wire, and you can just shape it and bend it there at the nose. And now we're just going to put in the final elastics. And to do that, you just want to flip this edge in so that everything is flipped inwards, and you'll be able to close it up and not be able to see any rough edges. And then you start at just the top, and again you want to make sure the shiny part is facing your lace and colored fabric. So I'm just going to put that in at the top, as close to the top as I can get it. And this time I'm doing a straight stitch, but I'm making sure to do it closer to the edge. So again, I just do the straight stitch till I hit the end of the elastic, and then I go back to that zigzag stitch and I zigzag backwards, back over the elastic, again strengthening our elastic bond. And back to my straight stitch, and before I go all the way to the end, make sure my second elastic is in there, again with the shiny part facing the front. And when I get to the end, same thing, go back to my zigzag stitch and just back it up with the zigzag stitch over the elastic. Back to my straight stitch. Off all those extra strings again, and here we have this little turquoise lace mask. And I'll go try this on for you in a moment, but I just wanted to reiterate, definitely go check out Kim Dyllas' mask tutorial, especially if you want one that has the filter pocket, because like I said, these are just 2 layers. But she also has the different size patterns in her description box, so you can go and check out her patterns so that you can get the pattern for this. And I'm going to just go try this on for you. I'll be right back. So here is how the small mask fits me. And just for comparison's sake, I'm going to try on one of the mediums for you so you can see how the medium fits. And that might help you decide which pattern would work best for you. So you can just see that the medium just has, it goes over like right to my ear and comes down a lot further underneath my chin. Still fits fine, still perfectly functional. I just feel like the small is a better fit. So, in the comment section below which one you felt fit me better. Whether you liked the small one better or the medium size better. And also tell me in the comments section below if you plan to try this tutorial and make one of your own. And I just want to thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you did enjoy this video, feel free to give me a thumbs down, but please leave me constructive criticism in the comments below so that I can improve, and please subscribe to the channel. And I hope everyone is just staying happy, healthy, and safe in this incredibly crazy world we are living in. And I'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.